chapter 15 of Black Beauty, an autobiography of a horse. Chapter 15 is The Old Hostler. After this, it was decided by my master and mistress to pay a visit to some friends who lived about 46 miles from our home, and James was to drive them. The first day we traveled 32 miles. There were some long, heavy hills, but James drove so carefully and thoughtfully that we were not at all harassed. He never forgot to put on the brake as we went downhill, nor to take it off at the right place. He kept our feet on the smoothest part of the road, and if the uphill was very long, he set the carriage wheels a little across the road so as not to run back, and gave us a breathing. All these little things help a horse very much, particularly if he gets kind words into the bargain. We stopped once or twice on the road, and just as the sun was going down, we reached the town where we were to spend the night. We stopped at the principal hotel, which was in the marketplace. It was a very large one. We drove under an archway into a long yard, at the further end of which were the stables and coach houses. Two hostlers came to take us out. The head hostler was a pleasant, active little man with a crooked leg and a yellow striped waistcoat. I never saw a man unbuckle harness so quickly as he did, and with a pat and a good word, he led me to a long stable with 6 or 8 stalls in it and 2 or 3 horses. The other man brought Ginger. James stood by while we were rubbed down and cleaned. I never was cleaned so lightly and quickly as by that little old man. When he had done, James stepped up and felt me over, as if he thought I could not be thoroughly done, but he found my coat as clean and smooth as silk. "Well," he said, "I thought I was pretty quick, and our John quicker still, but you do beat all I ever saw for being quick and thorough at the same time." "Practice makes perfect," said the crooked little hostler, "and 'twould be a pity if it didn't. 40 years practice, and not perfect? Ha ha, that would be a pity. And as to being quick, why, bless you, that is only a matter of habit. If you get into the habit of being quick, it is just as easy as being slow. Easier, I should say. In fact, it don't agree with my health to be hulking about over a job twice as long as it need take. Bless you, I couldn't whistle if I crawled over my work, as some folks do. You see, I have been about horses ever since I was 12 years old, in hunting stables and racing stables, and being small, you see, I was jockey for several years. But at the Goodwood, you see, the turf was very slippery, and my poor larkspur got a fall, and I broke my knee, and so of course I was of no more use there. But I could not live without horses. Of course I couldn't. And so I took to the hotels, and I can tell ye, it is a downright pleasure to handle an animal like this, well-bred, well-mannered, well cared for. Bless ye, I can tell how a horse is treated. Give me the handling of a horse for 20 minutes, and I'll tell you what sort of groom he has had. Look at this one, pleasant, quiet, turns about just as you want him, holds up his feet to be cleaned out, or anything else you please to wish. Then you'll find another, fidgety, fretty, won't move the right way, or starts across the stall, tosses up his head as soon as you come near him, lay his ears, and seems afraid of you, or else squares about you with his heels. Poor things, I know what sort of treatment they have had. If they are timid, it makes them start or shy. If they are high-mettled, it makes them vicious or dangerous. Their tempers are mostly made when they are young. Bless you, they are like children. Train them up in the way they should go, as the good book says. And when they are old, they will not depart from it if they have a chance. I like to hear you talk, said James. That's the way we lay it down at home, at our master's. Who is your master, young man? If it be a proper question, I should judge he is a good one. From what I see, he is Squire Gordon of Birtwick Part, the other side, the Beacon Hills, said James. Ah, so, I have heard tell of him. Fine judge of horses, ain't he? The best rider in the country. I believe he is, said James, but he rides very little now since the poor young master was killed. Ah, poor gentleman. I read all about it in the paper at the time. A fine horse killed too, wasn't there? Yes, said James. He was a splendid creature, brother to this one, and just like him. Pity, said the old man. 'Twas a bad place to leap. If I remember, a thin fence at top, a steep bank down to the stream, wasn't it? No chance for a horse to see where he is going. Now, I am for bold riding as much as any man, but still, there are some leaps that only a very knowing old huntsman has any right to take. A man's life and a horse's life are worth more than a foxtail. At least, I should say they ought to be. During this time, the other man had finished ginger and had brought our corn, and James and the old man left the stable together. On to chapter 16, the fire. Later on in the evening, a traveler's horse was brought in by the second hostler, and while he was cleaning him, a young man with a pipe in his mouth lounged into the stable to gossip. I say, Towler, said the hostler, just run up the ladder into the loft and put some hay down into this horse's rack, will you? Only lay down your pipe. All right, said the other, and went up through the trap door. And I heard him step across the floor overhead and put down the hay. James came in to look at us the last thing, and then the door was locked. I cannot say how long I had slept, nor what time in the night it was, but I woke up very uncomfortable, though I hardly knew why. I got up. The air seemed all thick and choking. I heard Ginger coughing, and one of the other horses seemed very restless. It was quite dark, and I could see nothing, but the stable seemed full of smoke, and I hardly knew how to breathe. The trap door had been left open, and I thought that was the place it came through. I listened and heard a soft rushing sort of noise and a low crackling and snapping. I did not know what it was, but there was something in the sound so strange that it made me tremble all over. The other horses were all awake. Some were pulling at their halters, others stamping. At last I heard steps outside, and the hostler who had put up the traveler's horse burst into the stable with a lantern and began to untie the horses and try to lead them out. But he seemed in such a hurry and so frightened himself that he frightened me still more. The first horse would not go with him. He tried the second and third, and they too would not stir. He came to me next and tried to drag me out of the stall by force. Of course, that was no use. He tried us all by turns and then left the stable. No doubt we were very foolish, but danger seemed to be all around, and there was nobody we knew to trust in, and all was strange and uncertain. The fresh air that had come in through the open door made it easier to breathe, But the rushing sound overhead grew louder, and as I looked upward through the bars of my empty rack, I saw a red light flickering on the wall. Then I heard a cry of "Fire!" outside, and the old hostler quietly and quickly came in. He got one horse out and went to another, but the flames were playing round the trapdoor, and the roaring overhead was dreadful. The next thing I heard was James's voice, quiet and cheery as it always was. "Come, my beauties, it is time for us to be off, so wake up and come along." I stood nearest the door, so he came to me first, patting me as he came in. "Come, beauty, on with your bridle, my boy. We'll soon be out of this smother." It was on in no time. Then he took the scarf off his neck and tied it lightly over my eyes, and patting and coaxing, he led me out of the stable. Safe in the yard, he slipped the scarf off my eyes and shouted, "Here, somebody, take this horse while I go back for the other." A tall, broad man stepped forward and took me, and James darted back into the stable. I set up a shrill whinny as I saw him go. Ginger told me afterward that whinny was the best thing I could have done for her, for had she not heard me outside, she would never have had the courage to come out. There was much confusion in the yard, the horses being got out of their stables, and the carriages and the gigs being pulled out of houses and sheds, lest the flames should spread further. On the other side of the yard, windows were thrown up, and people were shouting all sorts of things. But I kept my eye fixed on the stable door, where the smoke poured out thicker than ever, and I could see flashes of red light. Presently, I heard above all the stir and din a loud, clear voice, which I knew was Master's. "James Howard! James Howard! Are you there?" There was no answer, but I heard a crash of something falling in the stable, and the next moment I gave a loud, joyful neigh, for I saw James coming through the smoke, leading Ginger with him. She was coughing violently, and he was not able to speak. "My brave lad," said Master, laying his hand on his shoulder, "are you hurt?" James shook his head, for he could not yet speak. "Aye," said the big man who held me, "he is a brave lad, and no mistake." "And now," said Master, "when you have got your breath, James, we'll get out of this place as quickly as we can." And we were moving toward the entry, when from the marketplace there came a sound of galloping feet and loud rumbling wheels. "'Tis the fire engine, the fire engine!" shouted 2 or 3 voices. "Stand back, make way!" And clattering and thundering over the stones, 2 horses dashed into the yard with a heavy engine behind them. The firemen leaped to the ground. There was no need to ask where the fire was. It was rolling up in a great blaze from the roof. We got out as fast as we could into the broad, quiet marketplace. The stars were shining, and except the noise behind us, all was still. Master led the way to a large hotel on the other side, and as soon as the hostler came, he said, "James, I must now hasten to your mistress. I trust the horses entirely to you. Order whatever you think is needed." And with that, he was gone. The master did not run, but I never saw a mortal man walk so fast as he did that night. There was a dreadful sound before we got into our stalls, the shrieks of those poor horses that were left burning to death in the stable. It was very terrible, and made both Ginger and me feel very bad. We, however, were taken in and well done by. The next morning, the master came to see how we were and to speak to James. I did not hear much, for the hostler was rubbing me down. But I could see that James looked very happy, and I thought the master was proud of him. Our mistress had been so much alarmed in the night that the journey was put off till the afternoon. So James had the morning on hand and went first to the inn to see about our harness and carriage, and then to hear more about the fire. When he came back, we heard him tell the hostler about it. At first, no one could guess how the fire had been caused, but at last a man said he saw Dick Towler go into the stable with a pipe in his mouth, and when he had come out, he had not one, and went to the tap for another. Then the under hostler said he had asked Dick to go up the ladder to put down some hay, but told him to lay down his pipe first. Dick denied taking the pipe with him, but no one believed him. I remember our John Manley's rule, never to allow a pipe in the stable, and thought it ought to be the rule everywhere. James said the roof and floor had all fallen in, and that only the black walls were standing. The two poor horses that could not be got out were buried under the burnt rafters and tiles. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Time with Bubbo.